Hello there, boys and girls, and welcome to It's a Shaw Thing. I'm your host, Rob Shaw. We're talking some fantasy football, getting you ready for Week 9 of the NFL season. And yes, we're about at that halfway point, so make sure you listen up because you don't want to have Steven Jackson resting in your lineup once again, when in fact he might not play. All right, well, let's talk about what's going on. And by the way, if somehow, some way I don't answer all your questions, do contact us. That's fantasy@opensports.com. Well, let's kick off with the first game on the schedule this weekend. That's going to be the New York Jets going against the Buffalo Bills. This one should be a good one. Just one thing about Trent Edwards here. A lot of people scooping him up, expecting big numbers. Keep in mind, he has yet to throw multiple touchdowns in a single game this year. That being said, he still is a consistent and decent option. Lee Evans is the star wide receiver. Definitely have him in. Same goes for Marshawn Lynch. As far as the New York Jets, they got two very good receivers there. Lavernius Coles, Jericho Cotchery. Brett Favre should start. Dustin Keller's a decent tight end option. Thomas Jones on the ground should be all right, but keep an eye on Leon Washington. He had a breakout game last week, and find out if that was a trend or merely one nice game. All right, next up, we're talking about Detroit at Chicago. Believe it or not, once again, Kyle Orton should pump up mega yards in this one. This should be a good one for the Bears. Expect big things on the ground from Matt Forte. As far as the receiving options, Devin Hester, Rasheed Davis, usually pretty good options there. Brandon Lloyd expected to be healthy this weekend. You could start him. Olsen and Desmond Clark do kind of cancel each other out at the tight end position, but Kyle Orton is a must-start this weekend for Detroit. Calvin Johnson, that's it. Next up, Jacksonville against Cincinnati. A tough one if you've got anyone on Cincinnati these days. Cedric Benson expected to start again at running back, but there aren't many good options there. You've got two very good receivers, but what's the point if you can't get them the ball? So that being said, only if they remained your best options this weekend should you start them. As far as Jacksonville, start pretty much all of them, but watch out, Matt Jones to be suspended. If that's the case, Reggie Williams is a decent option as far as a receiver. Put up 10 touchdowns last year. Got his first touchdown this past weekend. Maurice Jones-Drew has struggled, but this is a perfect punching bag to bounce right back. David Garrard is an excellent start as well. Those are pretty good options against the Bengals, and of course I would start the defense going against Ryan Fitzpatrick. Next up, let's talk about Baltimore going against Cleveland. This game will be played at Cleveland. What does that mean for Baltimore? Only start their running back, and that is Willis McGahee. As far as the other options, Derek Mason probably would look for other options. For Cleveland, this is a tough one. Braylon Edwards has a very difficult matchup here. They are very good when it comes to stopping the pass. In fact, the Ravens allow fewer than 175 yards per week when it comes to the aerial attack. So that being said, watch out. And there you go. Derek Anderson, same situation. Kellen Winslow Jr. comes back. I expect decent things from him. It's usually easy to get the tight ends up the middle, a little more difficult to get the deep route option. Jamal Lewis going against his former team. I actually do like him in this one. I would start Jamal Lewis. Next up, we're talking Tampa Bay at Kansas City. Start everyone from the Bucs pretty much. That includes Jeff Garcia. Ernest Graham certainly worked on a little limited in practice this week, so I probably would avoid him, though. But I certainly would start Antonio Bryant. He has been pretty hot lately. Let's see what Joey Galloway is able to offer before we put him in your roster as well. As far as Kansas City, Larry Johnson suspended. Jamal Charles a little banged up, so Kobe Smith is the running back. I'm not sure how good that is. This is a guy who has struggled over the last couple of weeks. Otherwise, Tony Gonzalez is a must-start. Dwayne Bowe, he's been pretty good so far this year. I continue to put him in. Tyler Thigpen, nice weekend last week, but I wouldn't put him in this week. Let him prove himself first. Next up, we're talking about Arizona and St. Louis. Now, this one should be a fun one. Arizona has a bunch of receivers to start. If you're in a deep league, you could start Steve Preston along with Anquan Bolt and Larry Fitzgerald. Kurt Warner is a must-start. The running game, well, that's a little tricky. You might want to hold off on Edgerrin James. Tim Hightower on the other end with his 6 touchdowns is a pretty good start simply because of his touchdown vulture status. As far as St. Louis, Donnie Avery proves to be a must-start. Steven Jackson, do your homework Sunday morning. Find out if he's going to play. The last thing you want is to have a running back with a big donut next to his name. Mark Bolger with over 300 passing yards last weekend, but just 1 touchdown this weekend. Respect Arizona. Think about it. This is the same defense that knocked out Tony Romo and gave Trent Edwards a concussion. There will be some contact, and St. Louis does not have that great of an offensive line right now, so it's going to be a little tricky for Bolger, but at the same time, if it is a shootout or even if he's playing catch-up, he'll have an opportunity to put up some decent yards. So Avery, you definitely start. Torrey Holtz, what about him? He's a decent start. Wouldn't go nuts about him, but if you can deal with about 60 to 70 yards this weekend, I do think he'll be able to hit that mark, which is actually better than what he's been giving us lately. Next up, I think another shootout here. Houston at Minnesota. You got to love Minnesota. They got both things working, the ground and the pass. That being said, Houston has been strictly passing. This reminds me of a mini Arizona team. Matt Schaub is a must-start these days. Andre Johnson's probably the best receiver in the game. I think he'll have the best weekend in the game coming up. And next up, also on this team, Steve Slayton. Look, the fact is Amon Green's a little banged up. Even if they don't run the ball that much, they do throw the ball to Slayton, so I think he will have some value for for Minnesota. Obviously, you do want to start Adrian Peterson. He's a definite. Bernard Berrien also is a definite these days. Gus Frerotte, if you don't have any other options, he's not the worst option out there. Houston's defense isn't exactly that strong. Next up, Green Bay going against Tennessee. I could kind of see a letdown from Tennessee in this game, so you might want to continue with Aaron Rodgers, Greg Jennings, Ryan Grant. Tennessee had a lot of emotion that went away in that Indianapolis game, the big win for them. Of course, that also means less rest than usual, one less day, because of the fact they did play on Monday night. So a lot of things not working in Tennessee's favor. Obviously, they're a very good team. You do want to start both running backs, but that might be it right there. Maybe Bo Scaife at tight end if you need one. Next up, Miami at Denver. Look, I love Chad Pennington. I think I might be the only one saying this, but I think he's a definite start. Ted Ginn Jr., only if you have to. He had that great weekend last weekend, but let him prove himself, even though this defense does have some holes in the secondary. Remember, some of their best players are out for Denver. Also in Miami, Greg Camarillo has been pretty consistent so far this year. The running game has been inconsistent lately, only if you need to throw Ronnie Brown or Ricky Williams out there. Anthony Bassano, also a decent tight end option, but I'm very high on Chad Pennington this weekend. I think he'll keep it up with Jay Cutler. As for Jay Cutler, he'll put up great numbers as always. Brandon Marshall, Eddie Royal, both good starts. On the ground, be careful. They might have a rookie debut of Ryan Terrain, but they might not. They might hold him back. If they do hold him back, perhaps Michael Pittman, and also Selvin Young, two decent options there. But trust me, they're going to look to throw the ball more often than they will rush the ball. Next up, Dallas against the New York Giants. Jason Witten will be a game-time decision. Things are not looking good for Dallas these days. Terrell Owens, if you have him, you start him. Marion Barber, you have him, you start him. That's pretty much it from them. New York Giants start everyone. Plaxico Burress should be great this weekend. Brandon Jacobs. Even if you're very deep in the league, you could go Derek Ward at running back. He's a decent option out there as well. This is a team that should pump up some good yards, so for that reason, Eli Manning is also on my list to start. Next up, Atlanta going against Oakland. For Atlanta, Matt Ryan's been good even in games that they've lost. I would probably keep him in there. Roddy White is a must-start. Michael Turner also a must-start because Jarius Norwood got banged up with a concussion last weekend, so he will likely not play in this one, which means more carries for Michael Turner. For Oakland, McFadden is banged up. Just about everyone's banged up. Vargas has been ineffective. Maybe Michael Bush gets some more looks this weekend. As far as the passing game, Russell's opening it up a little bit, but not many guys to throw the ball to, even though Javon Walker has shown some signs of life recently. Zach Miller, by the way, at tight end, is always my favorite option in Oakland because they don't have many there. Next up, Philadelphia going against Seattle. This should be a good one for Donovan McNabb as well as Deshaun Jackson and Kevin Curtis as well. Brian Westbrook, of course, start him, probably the best running back in the league this weekend. Next up for Seattle, not much there, unfortunately. They do have some decent options last weekend with Seneca Wallace having a big day, but against the Eagles, different story, different defense. I wouldn't start anyone from Seattle this weekend. Next up, New England against Indianapolis. Not much excitement here either because of all those injuries, and Peyton Manning, by the way, does not look 100%. I would start Joseph Anaya if he's going to end up playing in this one, and so far it looks like he will. Reggie Wayne, though, keep an eye on him. He got banged up that last weekend or Monday night, so that being said, make sure he's going to play before you put him in there. As far as New England goes, you got to start Randy Moss. Wes Welker remains a good option. The running game, pay attention Sunday morning, figure out who's going to play, then put him in. But Sammy Morris looks like he's not going to be in there. Same thing goes for Lamont Jordan, so it looks like a similar situation with Kevin Falk from last weekend. Finally, Pittsburgh, Washington. This should be a good one, but there are some injuries concerns here as well. Ben Roethlisberger got banged up by the New York Giants, so he's not 100%, or at least that's what they're saying. Santonio Holmes does return as far as the wideouts go, but I'm a little concerned about this guy, whether or not he's going to be 100% effective. Willie Parker likely will not be 100% this weekend, or at least not when it comes to the carries. Noel Moore proved a lot, so they'll be able to ease in Willie Parker, so don't start him right away. As far as the other side of that matchup, there's some decent options there with Washington. Jason Campbell has yet to throw an interception so far, but the Steelers' defense is unbelievable. Clinton Portis deserves to start every weekend. Aside from him, maybe Santana Moss. Jason Campbell, again, the decent option, but not the best. Well, my friends, that's the Open Sports Open Huddle for you. You have any questions, email us at fantasy@opensports.com. Until we meet again, have a great weekend.
So you think you can tackle a pro? There's only one way to find out. Click on fantasy@opensports.com.